So, as you may have noticed by now, I have quite a crappy accent, so I will try to talk very slowly so you can understand me. So, what do you say? Okay, so let's get started. Two things. First one, we might have time for questions at the end, but it's not a given. So if we don't, please come at the round table today. It's at 6, I believe. So please come, tell us if you liked it, tell us if you have points you want to improve, ask smart questions. For example, yesterday during the round table on Black Ops and Fleet Warfare, I had very smart question asked to me and was just like, how am I going to answer that one? Don't look back, look at the questions. So yeah, please come at the round tables. The other point being that please remember that all of this is still work in progress. So don't scream, don't panic. We still want to discuss this with you. So let's get started. On the first part, very quick, we are going to have a look at how functional warfare works, what it's supposed to work, what are the flows coming out from this system, and then we'll bring out ideas, iterations on how to improve on this. So first, current system. Functionality is pretty simple, is that you just enlist by going to the functional warfare militia page, which is just full of role-play tests. You just can join as an individual. If you join as an individual, you just go into the proper functional warfare militia. You can join as a corporation. You can join as an alliance as well now, since not long ago. You need standings to join, like 0.5 as an individual mainly. And yeah, when you enlist, then you are part of functional warfare, and you have several consequences that are strapped into you. First, you are in an open war, or it should be, which means that you can now shoot the enemy factions. So if I'm a Gallantry pilot, I can now shoot Caldari and Amar, but I cannot shoot Minmatar, and vice versa, they cannot shoot me. The other funny point of this being that if you go back into ISEC, try to just sell something in JITA, you are going to get harassed by the NPCs, or most likely you are going to use your Orca alt to bypass the NPCs altogether. That's one of the consequences. Then we have functional warfare missions coming in. They are just like regular missions mainly. The main difference is that they are just simpler to do, like one level approximately simpler than regular corporations. They also bring you to the enemy space. So you actually have to travel all the way there to the mission very quickly, because when you enter the mission, the beacon becomes visible for anybody. So you can just be called to pounce down, which is why many players just farm them very quickly in stealth bombers, not to be caught. Then, based from that, we have the LP store, functional warfare LP store. Again, it's very similar to what you get in a regular LP store. The main difference being that you have a hefty discount. I think it's around 60% next to the regular offers. So in ISEC, well, in a regular Federation Navy store, if I want to buy a Navy Megatron, I will buy it 600,000 LPs, but in the functional warfare militia store, I will buy it 250 instead. So that's quite a reduction, 60%. Then you have complexes. Complex, the main goal is just to tie with occupancy. So you just warp it to the complex. Sometimes you have an acceleration gate preventing you from coming if you have too big of a ship. Sorry, you have a battleship, you can't enter this one, come back again. Then when you go into the complex, you have a capture point that you need to be close to. It usually depends between 10 and 20 kilometers, and you have a timer. And you have to just stay near this timer until just the complex switches. When you have enough complex captured, then the occupancy for the system becomes vulnerable, which allows you to shoot a control bunker. And if you shoot the control bunker, then you switch the occupancy all the way around to your faction. And finally, we have ranks. Ranks are mainly cosmetic feature, just you get from standings with your militia. So if I'm a player enlisted in Amar, if I get more and more standings with the 24th Imperial Crusade, I will get higher and higher ranks. You get standings from completing complexes as well. Yeah, there are many cosmetics. The only feature I can remember that are tied to is with PvP kills. Because PvP kills, you get more LP if you kill somebody that is in a bigger ship, that has more tech, and that has a higher rank. So that's basically how it works right now. And we had a look at that. We had quite some brainstorming inside TCP. We had a look at the forum threads that were popping up for like quite a while now. We also talked a lot with the CSM, and we are still talking with them as we will see after. So problems that come up with that. Well, the first one are the consequences, or more accurately, the lack of any consequence. Is that when you join functional warfare, there is no consequence for capturing a system. I mean, you just took the occupancy from the other faction, but you have no impact for doing so. The only thing that changes is the color on the star map. Blip, just like from blue to pink, congratulations, you just took one system and you get nothing. I think the only thing we gave once was like for the cavalry militia that just took all the Gallente space, we just gave them a medal. Congratulations, guys, you just like claimed all the system in the universe for the Gallente evaluation, but we give you a medal. The other problem is that as a faction, you have no consequence. I mean, it's supposed to be a goddamn war. It's not supposed to be like going to the market. Hey, Annie, I'm going to the market, doing some stuff in factional warfare. And when you have like two factions fighting each other, you don't have this feeling to be actually in a war. You just have the feeling of being grinding missions and trying to get fights, mostly that you are not going to get into because the players assume you are a spy. The other big problem is just like gameplay in general, which is totally lacking. As you know, as you very well know, the NPCs are far from being consistent. If, for example, I'm trying to go into a Calari complex, I'm going to get most of the time perma-jammed by the NPCs. So it's something that we really need to look into to make them more consistent, to make them more tied with PvP attributes, to make sure you are not perma-jammed, or that we don't give an advantage to a specific faction. After that, as well, combat. Combat in general is a bit weird at the moment. The factional warfare was mainly supposed to be like this territorial warfare light. It was supposed to be, we introduce you to PvP, so we want you to PvP with others. But at the moment, the way it is, it's mainly rewarding players doing missions. So you just go out there, you just grab your stealth bomber or whatever you can just run the mission very quickly with, and you just farm LP. You farm LPs without being caught, and that's how you just get your reward in factional warfare. Ideally, it should be the opposite. The way it should work is that you are mainly rewarded when you help your faction in territorial warfare. The best way to get rewarded would be like that. Then, if you kill somebody else in PvP, you should get rewarded. And last should be missions, not the opposite. Then the visibility in general is quite poor. To be honest, you don't really know when somebody takes a system. You don't really know what happens when a complex is being captured. You have to go into the star map filters, into occupancy. You have like 12 of them. It's just like, which one do I use and when? It's just very confusing. Also, the welcome page, the factional warfare militia page, is just not helping you to understand what you need to do in factional warfare. In our team, we had like one programmer trying to join factional warfare. He just never tried it before. And the guy was just completely lost. He came back to us and said, what the fuck am I supposed to do? I mean, I have this huge page full of role-playing text. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do at the end. And then we told him, yeah, but did you notice at the very end, you have like one line telling you, warning, if you join, you can be killed anywhere, anytime. Did you notice that? Oh, no. So, yeah, very lack of visibility in this feature. Standardization as well, as we will see, factional warfare has very unique mechanisms that don't have so much of an impact. For example, occupancy. It's just a variable we added for the sake of it when you add factional warfare. What does it actually do in a system? What it is, its purpose? So we have a look at that. And the notification, as I said, I mean, when you capture a system, we want to know how and when approximately. You want to know what's happening when a complex is being attacked. The only point that we need to be careful with this is not to make it too easy to know when things are happening, so you still have some time to just capture before the enemy force comes in. Last point, being the rewards. I mean, I talked about that a bit in the previous points as well, but it's fairly obvious. I mean, PvP kills could be a lot more rewarding. And the ranks, I mean, you should have a real purpose of having ranks in general in factional warfare, just instead of just having like a cosmetic pixel in your character sheet. Okay, so that's how it is right now. Let's try to improve upon it. So some of the points are going to be a bit tricky, so bear with us here. Don't panic. The first one, we wanted to go back on the drawing table and try to provide objectives for factional warfare. Before we just started implementing and designing stuff, we wanted to provide high-end goals that could fit this feature. The main one, well, one of the main goals was to make it consistent with nullsec territorial warfare mechanism. We would like factional warfare to be a stepping stone to help you, teach you how sovereignty and territorial warfare works in general. However, we do know that factional warfare is a specific feature players like and want to be still something apart from territorial warfare to do their own stuff. They're not interested into the nullsec drama and politics. They just want some casual PvP. They just want to enjoy the fight between the factions. So you have to keep that in mind. You just don't need to do it to be exactly like a nullsec. Then we want, of course, to encourage players to fight for their faction instead to fight against missions. Provide consequences for fighting in a system, in a faction in general, and properly reward when you're doing well. And finally, better visibility, as I said, just what the hell is happening in my faction. We want to improve on that. So the first of the point is going to be mainly cosmetic and consistency changes. Is this, when you go into a factional warfare system, or Monster, for example, you can see the first, you have two Galente Federation links. So first one is sovereignty, just click on it and you open the soft tracker, and the second one is occupancy. Occupancy, what again is its purpose? How do you really specify what occupancy is doing in the system? Is that like, okay, the system is owned by like Galente, but it's occupied by Caldari, so that means Caldari have like forces in the system that still belongs to the Galente. It's a mess. So what we would like to do is just get rid of the occupancy and have factional warfare affect sovereignty instead. So when you are fighting for example, the Yamar Empire in low-sec, you can see on the star map you are having a consequence. You are changing the sovereignty of the Yamar Empire itself. You're not changing an arbitrary variable that has little consequence. And you could have a lot more consequences regarding sovereignty down the line. For example, you could affect the NPCs that come here and so on. That's one of the first changes we would like to do. The other one is this, the control bunker. You should have a control bunker, but it's, again, a feature very specific to factional warfare. Maybe you should have that instead, shooting an infrastructure hub. So before you just scream out, we are not changing the attributes on any of this. It's just a cosmetic change to say, to introduce you, if you want to keep going forward toward nullsec, it says, if you want to claim the system, you have to shoot formerly the control bunker, now it's an infrastructure hub. And when you shoot it, when the system was vulnerable, now it's lost. The only attribute we will change with that is the SIG radius, because at the moment the control bunker is fairly small, and if I remember properly, you can't shoot it properly with torpedoes because the signature radius is very small, and we want to make it that you can't shoot it properly with large weapons. So that's mainly for that. Then we want consequences for capturing the solar system. So the first one being, if you capture the enemy system, why are you allowed to dock in their stations? I mean, you are at war with me and I'm still, yeah, welcome to my station, enjoy our fine drink and women and booze. No. No. You should not be allowed to do that. Fight for your faction, and then when your faction owns the system, you can dock and do the services stuff. The other stuff, we want you to allow to upgrade systems you own. So, how do you do that? Well, we want to use factional warfare loyalty points as the main currency you are going to use. So you earn loyalty points for missions and through other means I'm going to talk into very soon. And we want to use these loyalty points as a currency just put into the control bunker, now named the infrastructure hub, to unlock upgrades. So it's just like work like a communist pool. You just like have a general pool, and you just put LP into it, pour LP into it. And anybody in your faction can participate, from like the rookies that just joined a few hours ago to the elite PvP corporation that just don't know what to do with its LP. Anybody can participate, and as you reach certain milestones, you unlock upgrades. So I'm going to talk more about actual upgrades later, but we also want to encourage players to donate, because we do know that if you donate LP into this high hub, you are not donating the LP or using it to get stuff from the LP store. So we want to encourage you. You participated by donating LP, you get rewards. One of such rewards, nothing is fixed yet, is just to give you, for example, a bonus to your LP gains. So if you donate, for example, 50,000 LP as a corporation, then you could get like plus 10% bonus to LP boost for factional warfare for the next week or something. If you donate like 100,000, you can get plus 20%, and so on. We need to be careful with the power equipping, of course, but you get the idea. So now regarding the upgrades, which kind of upgrades will you get for upgrading a system? Well, anything that can help you go back into the fight and motivate industry. For example, one thing we would like to do is just reduce the cost of medical clones, not jump clones, medical clones. So if you die and you have a system upgraded, clones could cost like half as much. So now you can go back into the fight without paying as much for the clones. Another thing we could do is just like the market taxes, reduce them, to encourage traffic to come back on, to encourage like other industrials to populate the system while you protect it as a militia. We could also, for example, add NPCs to patrol the gates to lessen the risk a bit. I want to make it clear we don't want to remove the risk altogether. We need to be very careful about how and we make the NPCs appear. But it's just like a risk reduction, so you have less evil player camping at the gate. Is more like of a target of opportunity. You have like X amount of time before the NPC show up. Again, it's really vague right now. Another thing we are going to do, and I want to make it clear, it's not final, we are still talking with the CSM about that, is to introduce a side-node jammer. So if you upgrade the system fully, you have access to a side-node jammer, and you can prevent capitals from coming in. It's your system. You do prevent other alliances from coming in, and they have to bargain with you to enter your system. Exactly how the side-node could work, well, like, there could be, for example, a small complex, you go in, you pay LP, you have a timer before it switches on or off. Again, please come to the roundtables if you have feedback about that, and I'm sure you do right now. So how does it look like? That's a UI concept one of the UI guys on our team, we call him CCP Arrow, came up with. So I'll try to explain it briefly. So you can see at the bottom, this guy has like 48,300 LP. He's just looking at the high-hub management. You can see that this high-hub has now like level 1 unlocked in green for 10,000 LP. The next level is being unlocked for 20,000, and the small icons on the right side are the bonuses he gets. If you hover over each bonuses, you will get a text saying exactly which kind of bonuses you get for having this upgrade. And again, this is a pool that anybody in your faction, in your militia, can participate and help you unlock. Regarding another change we want to do is data core changes. So you may wonder why now, how is this related to factional warfare? So just wait 5 minutes and we will tell you. Data cores and passive claiming them for research agents, we think it's a bit too much at the moment. It's a bit like this ATM machine. You just claim money all the time. You just wait for him to give more data cores. We would like to reduce its effectiveness a bit. So for example, the amount of research points you could require to get one data core could be double, and we could require a small ISK fee as well. So why are we doing that? Why are we just looking at data cores? How the fuck is it linked with factional warfare? Well, because maybe we want to also have data core offers in the LP stores of factional warfare militias. So if you go, for example, into the MR Empire LP store for factional warfare, you will see a Mayan Starship engineering data core for like each X amount of LP and ISK, and that you could claim. So that's one of the reasons we would like to do that, and it's also tied with the next point, which is war zone control, is to give you more consequences as a faction on what's going on in the war. So what does it do? Actually, capturing and improving space matters. So tied with the point before, we will count in each faction how many systems you own and how many upgrades you have for each systems. And the more your faction owns systems and have them upgraded, the more the offers on the data on LP store will be reduced. So the better you do as a faction, the more rewarded you are for doing so. But the trade-off is, if you look, for example, at the Galente in Caldari Warzone, it's a fixed amount of system, right? So if I'm a Galente player, we are doing well as a faction, and we are getting a lot of reduction into our LP store because you're doing well, that means that you and the Caldari militia are going to get in trouble. And you need to fight back to get the price going on normally into your LP store. So that's, again, one UI way of doing that. I will explain how it is a bit right now. So at the bottom, again, you can see the benefits you get for each. You can see the points you need to get into the next tier. Tier is just like tied to which kind of bonuses you get for your faction. So for example, tier 1, you will get the worst offers possible for your militia LP store. And as you move into higher tiers, so better offers you will get. So for example, here the Caldari is like a tier 2. If it wants to get into tier 3, it has to fight back the Galente Federation. And when it does reach like the number of systems, it just gets to a tier. Which brings me to the icons below with points and the 54, 24, 12. This is the points you get to unlock the next tier from like system you own and the system you have upgraded. So like 54, which is like for Caldari factions, they own 54 systems. Within these 54 systems, they have like 24 systems that are upgraded to level 1, 12 that are upgraded to level 2, and you count all of that as part of the 90 points that gets them to the tier 2. And to reach like the tier 3 on the chart above, they will need 125 points, so like 35 more points to unlock. Yep, so that's basically what we want to do about that. Again, the benefits will be, as I said before, you dynamically change the price of all the offers on your faction militia, and we also could give you another boost for LP bonus. So the better you do, the more you boost you get on the LP gains as a faction. So if I am, for example, at tier 2, we get plus 5% boost to LP gains, tier 3 plus 10, then plus 20, and so on. As again, numbers are not fixed. Complex changes. We want to give you LP when you capture a complex, but we don't want to give them randomly. We want them to come from somewhere. So let's take an example. I am in Galente faction, and me and my buddies just upgraded a high hub to level 3 by donating, for example, 50,000 LP, and we are just enjoying the rewards, like farming and whatever we want, just living on our own. But we have this in the system as well, a complex. And the Caldari players come in, capture the complex, and gain 10,000 LP out of it. What's going to happen is that the LP we invested was stolen. And that if we, as a faction, want to keep our upgrades in the factional warfare systems, we have to fight for it. We have to come back and make sure the guy is killed before he can capture it back. We also want the NPCs to be less, well, dull. I mean, to be honest, they could be a lot more improved on. As I said before, we could make them more consistent, so getting what they are doing. We also want to have a look at the attributes to be like much more PvP-oriented and reduce the number as well, a bit like what we did with the incursion NPCs, for example. And NPCs should be a stopgap measure when there is no PvP. If I come into a complex and there is no player to stop me, there should be some NPCs to keep me occupied, but if there are like players coming in all of a sudden to try to stop me, there should be no more NPCs spawning. the existing NPCs that were there before will not unspawn, which just like we prevent new NPCs to come in. Just like to keep some content going, to keep you busy. And yeah, if possible, we would like you not to speak tongues them. And then another slide, this one is about the if-does link. So I'm pretty sure most of you here have been to the does keynote yesterday, but that's something we investigate for quite a while. So at the moment, to capture a system, you do complexes. To do complexes, the system becomes vulnerable, then you shoot the formerly known conditional bunker, now known as a high hub, and then when you completely disable it, the system is lost and becomes yours at the next downtime. One thing we could investigate is the dust style of it. Maybe if a system is just too well defended by another militia in space, maybe you could contract some dust bags to just affect it with matches. Again, that will not mean the system would just lose. It means that the high hub will become vulnerable from another min. You will still have to go and shoot a high hub no matter what. So again, this is very tricky to balance, and we are still, considering options at the moment on how much matches should weight against complexes. So we don't want to make you redundant, and we don't want to make them redundant. It's very tricky to look at. And we also have to consider interactions between the two. So you saw yesterday, like orbital bombardment. That's something you could be asked to do. And then they could have like defenses as well. So that's, again, something that is on the horizon that we are still considering. Please comment on the tables if you have feedback about that. Another point, that the PvP kills themselves needs to be looked at. At the moment, you get LPs that is just a semi-fixed value based on the hull you destroy, its tech level, and the rank. Maybe you should be more rewarded depending on what the guy had fitted and was hauling. So if you are shooting a freighter in the opposing militia, full of goods, full of shit, and you kill it, you could possibly get LP proportional to the cargo hold he had. If I shoot an enemy ship that was just like pimped with dead space, modules, and whatever, maybe the LP I get for killing that guy is proportional to the total value of the ship, counting modules fitted and what he was hauling. And then, yeah, and then you could count the other variables we have like right now, like the rank. That could also be it. Visibility, which is again a point that you wanted to have a look at. Revamp the functional warfare militia page. Again, when you join functional warfare and you get this, just like 90% of it is just like roleplay text. I'm not against roleplay, but you should know clearly that the consequences for joining, that you can be shot at any time, and you also need to know what you need to do in functional warfare. How do I know that I need to shoot, capture complexes? How do I know that I can then go back and to do some missions? And the rank, there is nothing telling you that here. One of the next thing we could do is just help your EPIN status by having a leaderboard, allowing you to see how well you fare in your faction. For example, we could sort it out by kill-death ratio, by how much LPs you gain in a specific amount of time. It could be like day or a week, or we could just sort it by rank, when we make ranks more useful, of course. And the visual notifications that are a bit lacking, well, not existing actually. Just at the moment, to know that the system is being attacked, you either have to look at the star map under a specific setting, if I remember properly, it's like contested, or you have to go to the system itself and look at the HUD and see like Old Man Star vulnerable. Maybe there should be a different way for you to know that as well. And that's basically about it. I think we still have some time left. I'm not sure how much. 30 minutes, that's great. A lot of time of very smart questions and very confusing questions coming up then. I don't have a mic then, but okay, thank you for listening. Okay, good. So do we have questions? Yes, piling up.
Queue up over here. First question, I guess, to get going. You're talking about the sino-jamming of the systems.
Yes.
Now, we're a militia, we're not an alliance. We're a collection of an NPC corp, a number of corporations and alliances. We have a massive problem with spies at the moment. What's going to stop, I put a sino up in, say, where I live. What stops a mini corp infiltrating the Myanmar militia and shutting that sino down? And because if it's a militia asset, what stops that happening?
Yes.
Versus it's my alliances, and basically it's no longer really about faction warfare SOV, it's about my alliance now holds that little SOV within it. Plus you've got then the factor of all the non-militia parts in low-sec space. You've now, for instance, got a mechanism for locking out people from running level 5 missions and all sorts of things. So what's the thought around dealing with these repercussions?
Okay, yeah, that's a design consideration and concern you have as well. Is that while in an alliance you have a control about who can do what, in factional warfare, if you have a sino jammer, who can activate it, when and where? I mean, at the moment it can be anybody. You just have to activate an LP. It's a bit, it's not good enough, we believe, still. It needs to be iterated. Then, we bring to the next point that how far do we want to go with alliances and leadership control in factional warfare? Do we want people to just have roles and elect roles just like you have in nullsec alliances, but then it's bringing you too close of nullsec? You didn't join factional warfare to get the same kind of hierarchy than in nullsec. So that's a very good question, and that's a design consideration we are still having and discussing right now. So we're not saying that sino jammers are coming in, we're just saying that it's under heavy debate.
Well, I have two questions, really. One is just a fix we've been waiting for a long time, and that's basically, when will I be able to attack back someone who's in my own faction who attacks me without losing standing? Well, if I get attacked by someone who's in my faction, if I attack back, I'm going to lose standing. It's been going on like this for a while now. But also, my other question was, we in the Mimitar militia have been keeping RSAD for a while now, and that's a one station system, and it's owned by the Amar militia, which means if we can't dock there, we can't have our ships. So we have our ships in there right now. If we lose that system, and depending on how fast you can take that, we also lose our ships that are locked inside. And are you planning on changing the names of the stations, or are you going to add more stations, or what are your plans on that?
Okay, regarding the station topology, it's a good comment as well. We could have a look at the stations in general, but the current plan, as I said before, if you lose the system, you lose the station. It's part of the consequences, so you better be prepared for it. Have a look at your ships, you need to move them. Remind me, what was the first question again? It was with standings, yes, standings, and not being able to shoot a member of your own militia. Yeah, I had a look about that. I've seen some issues about players just abusing that quite a bit by having their own corporation and hopping between them. It's definitely something that we need to look into, because you're just bypassing the consequences. It's a very smart way of doing so, I have to admit. But just bypassing the consequences, because you're still shooting your own members with no penalty. And that needs to be looked into, definitely.
I'd like you to consider having diminishing returns for rewards. So you said that if you take a lot of systems, you'll get more, possibly earn more LP, or the data cores will become a lower price. I think you should get a diminishing return, so you get a lot of return, a lot of increase for the first 10%, and the last 10% you get a very small reward that way. If one group's winning and the other side is losing a lot, they've got an incentive to actually just get to that first tier. And there's not much incentive for the other side to finish off and get to 100%.
Yeah, that's a very good comment. That maybe you want to have a look into, so that a faction cannot completely destroy the other, and it's just game over for the other one. Maybe just having diminishing returns, so it's more and more difficult for you to keep capturing systems. That would be a very good point as well. Make sure you have logistics to keep things going. Yes.
How are you going to make it so that you don't get glory hunting, where people realise, say, the Galente at level 4, and it seems pretty hopeless, why don't we all just join the Galente and reap the benefits?
You could just do that, but since the data core offers anyway are going to be split among all of our factions, that means you won't have redundant offers. That means that the other data core will still be quite expensive in price, and somebody will have to go back. But yes, again, that's a thing we need to consider, especially regarding the standings. So you can just swap sites consistently, and that's also a very good point regarding the preventing the enemy to dock. I mean, okay, I can't dock in the system because I'm the enemy militia. I'm just going to just leave the militia, come back like today, and now I can dock because I'm neutral. So yes, again, good comment.
Hi, I was wondering with respect to the LP and how that gets applied, you were saying about putting the LP into the faction that you were with in order to be able to gain the LP to be able to apply it to the system. So with respect to that, then who gets to decide where that LP and to which system it gets applied?
You mean for the system itself or for the system itself? It's just, I mean, it's just a communal pool. There is nobody deciding. It's just like having a glass, it is empty, and anybody can come in and just fill it up. And it's a system by system basis. So you don't need to have anybody deciding, which is partly why we went that way, because the first iteration was just like, you decide which kind of upgrades you want. But since you have nobody in charge to tell you, you end up with exactly that. Am I answering the question? Because I still look confused.
Well, so it gets like if I'm living where we are is in Camella, so as a corporation we would apply our LP to Camella. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Also, the Sino jumping, with respect to controlling that, are we just controlling who gets to jump in, period, or is it just applying to faction warfare corps and who gets to jump through? Like, can I stop PL from jumping through Camella?
Ideally, I mean, you need to be in factional warfare to interact with the Sino, and it's only the faction owning the system, of course. So no neutrals, no enemies, it's only you. But then again, as somebody mentioned before, there is a huge lack of design, and you have a lot of connect cases regarding who can control it and when. If you have spies in a corporation, then if you have a Sino active and all of a sudden you see it's being deactivated, you have a spy issue, and how to trust and how to have roles. So yeah. You're welcome.
Hi, yeah, I have a few questions actually. The first one is, you mentioned enemy stations you might be locked out of if you lose system control.
Yes.
What do you count as enemy stations? Is it all of them? Is it just the ones that belong, for example, to the Empyrean Crusade? And does it not count the neutral stations like Scope?
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah, neutrals can still dock, just to make sure we understand each other.
The other question is, will you let PvP kills count or against system occupancy or sovereignty? So if I, as an Amar pilot, in Minmatar space, and I kill a Minmatar pilot, will that count towards capturing the system for the Amar, and vice versa in defense?
It's a great comment. I mean, ideally, that's something that we could really consider. In practice, I will be very wary about connect case and exploiting, then I can have alts farming each other, do you understand what I mean? But it's definitely something that we could have a look into.
Yes, you would definitely need some sort of diminishing returns on the kills. The last question I had was, and I guess it sort of ties into the diminishing returns on the LP store benefits question that we had earlier. I was kind of worrying that if a winning faction gets a lot of benefits to their loyalty point gain, and therefore the losing faction is much less. Aren't you worried a lot of players are going to leave the losing faction, join the winning one, which only increases the problem?
We are worried about that. I mean, that's a point we already said, is that we want to promote combat. But it's very difficult in the sandbox when you can min-max quite a lot to have this fair combat. And again, I mean, you have to be very careful about the min-max consequences. Is my faction is having all the bonuses, and the enemy one is having none. Why do I want to join the other one? So again, it's work in progress, but that's a very good point you want to keep. Thanks.
So yeah, I don't really like any of the big empires. So when are you going to introduce the pirate faction into this?
The pirate factions. Yeah, I mean, we've read some comments about that. Pirate factions, I mean, to be honest, we don't know when we want them in. At the moment, we'll rather focus on making the existing system viable. If and when it's viable and you see it's working, then you can extend it to the pirate factions, because pirate factions are also like NPC space and nullsec, and you have like other consequences with that. So, yeah. Thanks.
Well, okay, I just have to say, personally, I think that...
Maybe you should wait in line. I just don't want to be rude, but you have guys waiting. Maybe you want to go there. Or you can talk after if you want.
Hi, a couple guys already touched on this question with the diminishing returns and if one faction overwhelmingly has an advantage over the other. But I remember when FW first came out, and it started with the Malcallan terrorist attack with the Nix mothership. And I remember logging in, and that was very fun and exciting to me. I'm a big fan of EVE lore and the EVE Chronicles and all the fiction, the fun little stuff that goes with it. Does CCP have an idea of how they might have a lore-based, content-based response to if one faction overwhelmingly gains an advantage over the other?
That's a good point, but I'm not a content or story writer, so I mean I can't really, I don't know, I can't really answer that without talking out of my ass, so I would prefer not to. We have some writers out there. I mean, if you can just hunt them down like Pikachus and see them, that would be great. But I mean, I'm sorry, I can't just answer. It would be great to be honest, but then it's all about trying to renew the story, so you don't end up with the same thing again, just like we kill Sancha Kubikai for like 100th time, then it's boring now. Thanks. You're welcome.
Hi, a couple of other things just want to know. For some of the corps that are more into the plexing at the moment, one of the things that really annoys them is the amount of quote-unquote Care Bears who just farm the missions.
It's about what?
The Care Bears farming the faction warfare missions is an issue. Are we actually going to see a mechanic put in place such that you cannot farm the LP unless you actually partake in faction warfare? Because especially if what you're now saying is going to happen with the data cores, I can see a lot of industrialists just dumping a character into faction warfare to get the data cores, which is what a lot of people do at the moment to get the cheap ships or cheap slices. One of the mechanics that I've discussed, for instance, with people is at the moment you get your victory points, which don't do anything. One of the things that's been suggested is before you can actually start pulling like a level 4 mission, you've got to cash in from your victory points. So if you're not plexing, if you're not fighting, you can't get your LP. That way it's a self-fulfilling thing. And also, and a second to that is, if there's going to be consequences, this is the 4 empires here at war through their militias. They've got their unofficial, oh no, we're not involved here, you know, militias doing it. We need to therefore see consequences to the non-faction warfare people as well. There needs to be impact into things like HiSec, because they're part of the empires, so that needs to flow through. And yeah, data cores isn't going to be enough. There needs to be more flow-ons so that faction warfare actually does affect the empires and HiSec. Nullsec is null, that's fine, but yeah, we're just the low-sec and partial. And then there's all the bugs and stuff I guess we need fixing, and like seeing the off-Fenley one, like the Amar do not see the Caldari as Fenleys. Makes it really hard to fleet up with them.
I have to interrupt you here because that was a long sentence. But regarding the consequences in ISEC, we have been thinking about some way to do that. We have nothing planned yet because, as we said before, we prefer to have like a viable system in fractional warfare. And when we know it's working, when we know it's interesting for players, then we can extend to whatever we want. Regarding farming missions and getting the rewards, yes, I mean, as I said before, we want to reward you the most for doing stuff that matters for your faction. If you do territorial warfare, if you do PvP kills, you should get a lot more reward from missions. Then again, having an arbitrary limit to prevent you to do missions until you have done X, Y, or Z, we don't know yet. We may not want to force you to do something you don't like, but maybe you should have a look into missions so they're less easy to do, or there are more consequences of doing a mission that you are most likely to get caught when you do so, and so on. Does that answer your question? Okay, you can grab me later if you want.
All right, so as far as it's not so much a question as just saying that, like, I fully agree with the fact that the pirate factions should be brought into faction warfare. 100% we need the pirate factions involved. But personally, like, my big concern is how does that stack up? Like, how do they get ranked, and how does that get sorted? I personally believe it should be a secondary thing. Because, like, myself and my character, I am Minmatar Militia, but I'm also an Angel Cartel sympathizer. So, like, how is that going to stack up? Like, if it does get brought in, how would that get balanced? Like, how could you be, say, Sancha? You support Sancha. So does that automatically make you red to every fucking one else?
Oh, sorry. Congratulations, you just had the design questions we have for like 1 day. So, I mean, this is the kind of questions we need to answer before we can have this bad stuff. I mean, that's why we say, I mean, if factional warfare is viable, maybe we want to iterate, but there are quite some concerns to answer, and what you listed are some of them. I know what you are going to ask.
You know what I'm going to ask, but I'm still waiting for your answer on the forum. So, I know what you're trying to accomplish with the Sino-jammers in factional warfare, and it's actually to isolate that from the influence of bigger zero alliances like PL, who regularly outdrop them. However, considering the power of the Sino-jammers in LowSec, aren't you afraid that the end result is that it's going to lead to more external influence for the sole purpose of controlling the Sino-jamming, because it's a very powerful tool in terms of mobility and logistics? And the second thing about that is it's going to have a detrimental aspect to the non-factional warfare fights that happen in LowSec that still need to happen. So how do you take that into consideration into the decision whether to put Sino-jamming into factional warfare or not?
That's a very good point. I mean, the point was to bring more consequences when you control the system, but yeah, I mean, we also have to be very careful about who that attracts, because if you are doing to do something as a fight for a faction, and all of a sudden you have like 1,000 men alliance hopping in because I want to control the system, as well, it's going to be very, very tricky. So yeah, we are still looking into that. Whatever you want a Sino-jammer to be there or not, just being discussed. Okay, just one thing. How much more time do we have?
13 minutes.
13, that's fine. Okay.
At the moment, it's possible to flip a system within, 7 hours, maybe more, slightly more. I mean, is there a way that you can, or are you looking into the timers? Because one time zone can pretty much dominate in plexing. Flip a system, so when you log on, I'd say after a night's sleep, you come into a system which has been flipped. Are you looking into those timers? And is there something that you're looking at, say, where you make a system vulnerable, you can't actually attack it for, say, a set amount of time, say, a set 12 hours, 24 hours. So it gives you time to then mount a force, especially if you're talking about flipping stations as well.
So you're asking, do you want some kind of reinforcement timers, just like we have on Starbase and stuff, to make sure you can participate?
Yeah, and also the fact that at the moment you can flip a system, like I say, in a time zone. So say someone can plex for 12 hours straight, flip a system, and not give you a chance to, say, come back to it and try and defend it.
Well, that's tricky to balance as well, because with the reinforcement timers, you always have to wait between players that want to capture the system right now, the actual players that are logged in, and other players that are in other time zones and can't log in. I think to answer that, it's really tied on how many systems are going to be contested per day and how many are available for your time zone. So yeah, I mean, we didn't consider reinforcement timers for now, but that's a good point. That's maybe something we want to have a look into. I mean, we definitely can't answer that on that one because it's enough to more design considerations. But yeah, if you want like everybody to participate, maybe that's something we want in. But again, on the downside, is that you are stalling factional warfare a bit. You are waiting, just like for Starbase. Okay, we need to wait like 20 hours before it just goes out of reinforced mode. It's just boring.
Yeah, sorry, just to come back to that, but wouldn't that also increase the amounts of fights that you'd be getting in faction warfare? If you knew that, say, a system was going vulnerable in 6 hours, instead of where now you can get fights where you can flip the system, no one will be there, it will be increasing the chance of PvP.
It would, but then you have to ask yourself, would that be fair PvP or not? Well, excuse me, PvP is never fair, but would that be like casual PvP or something that you are trying to bring, or just like one fleet looking at the other fleet and trying to outblob each other? Or God, they bought like 2 more guys, we need this more. Again, you have to wait all of this. I mean, I can't answer either way, but that's definitely a point you need to have a look at it.
Hi, I'm fairly new to faction warfare, and one thing I realized is from outside it looks like, whoa, that MR Alliance faction warfare. And if you go inside, it's actually not an Alliance type of thing. It's all those points which were brought up about, yeah, but who can then activate those Sino chambers? Who can deactivate them? Or, oh, there are so many, what was it called? Care Bears doing missions. Well, maybe they don't know better because they don't know where the real business is going on, because they have those subgroups, sub-team speaks, sub-voice comms, where the real business with regards to PvP is going on. And unless you bring something good, either in numbers, size, technology, whatever, it helps for that particular militia, it's probably hard to get in. Yes. Now, all of that things, I think, goes to the main point. How do you make those different faction warfare militias to actually acting as an alliance?
That's very difficult because, I mean, you always have the issue of trust, and even when you get in a fleet fight and factional warfare, you always do it for spy and you need recommendations, if I remember properly. So there is no feature we can implement to promote trust with the player. I mean, it's something between you and him over there. We just can't come in and enforce that trust to you. We can provide visibility tools to help with that. I mean, what you were saying, for example, getting a fight and stuff, that's something we could help you with notifications. But regarding trust, you're touching a lot more here. You're touching about players having alts, and you're touching about players just swapping factions, and that's a lot more concern than just factional warfare. So, I mean, I'm sorry, but I just can't give you an answer. I just don't know. I mean, it's just like a big feature. If you want to do it, how do you promote trust in a game that is a sandbox that is renowned for having, like, excuse me for the term, for players stabbing each other? It's okay. Okay, last question.
What thought have you put into like front lines or a tide of war type mechanic? Because at the moment it's pretty much you work a system until you flip it and then you move to the one next door, or if there's no one next door you'll try and run them, such that you get the point at the moment, like, you know, you'll see them R guys, they'll try and flip about 3 or 4 systems, the minis will try and hold theirs and stuff. There's no sort of pushing and shoving across the systems. There needs to be some kind of backwards and forwards, such that if I'm doing something in, say, Korn, it should affect Huola, even though it's held by the other system, or the other militia, because at the moment, basically once somebody gets really heavily entrenched, and for instance, Mumis are pretty heavily entrenched in Huola, taking it back, you know, for various reasons, Imar haven't taken it off them for quite a while. There needs to be some kind of mechanic, though, so there's some kind of tide of war, surely. And this has been discussed a number of times in the forums about this, that, you know, you've got to push and push and push. You can't just suddenly take something massively, you know, in isolation and create one little system island.
That's something we discussed when we were doing like a gameplay on capture, and I see some ideas going on, is that we are participating in a war, so if you want to capture a system that is not connected to your faction, you could, but it's a lot more difficult than doing so on the war zone. I mean, we are talking about having systems like affecting other, getting logistics and stuff, but there is nothing at the moment. There is no plan to implement that. It's just in the discussion phase. But regarding what you said, we are definitely considering it. Yeah. Well, it depends. I mean, the fight may be more localized, but then it may be like just static fleet fight. Maybe you just don't want static fleet fight. Maybe you also want to be able to go as a small gang into the enemy space and capture that system well, not capture the system, but have like small objectives for smaller gangs that you will not have by having a huge border zone as well. So again, it's difficult to tweak. Thanks a lot, people.